16 hours a day where I did nothing else. And what I realized was that there were actually specific reasons why I played. It wasn't just because games were fun. It was because they were a way for me to escape. So the first reason I played was it was a temporary escape. It's a way that I was able to not have to deal with stress in my life. I could get away from it. Or not have to deal with the depression in my life. I could get away from it. When I was playing, I was having fun, and I didn't have to think about the problems in my life. The second reason was the social community. So when I stayed home on a Friday night and played, I was playing with my friends. All of my friends played. I know it's really common for parents to think that, to tell your kids, like, those aren't real relationships online. But as an example, last year I went to Singapore, and I know we have some people from Singapore here, and for 7 years I've been talking to this blogger online about entrepreneurship and things like that, and we met up in Singapore, we had a great time, and we still stay in touch today. And those relationships online are actually very real, they're very meaningful. Yes, they're not face-to-face, and you miss out on certain aspects of that, but the meaning in the relationship is very strong. So social was the next reason. The third reason was constant measurable growth. So I got to see my progress. I got to see feedback. I got to see my skill improve. In life, that takes more time. I DJ and I surf, and for me to see improvement in those areas takes months, takes years. Whereas in a game, in a couple hours, I can see I've improved a lot, and it'll tell me a score. So constant measurable growth was a big part of it, including the instant gratification of it. And the fourth reason was they were a challenge. So they give you a sense of purpose. Games are specifically designed to give you a specific thing to do, a specific mission, a goal to achieve. And in that, if you don't have that sense of purpose outside of it, your purpose becomes that game. And I see this every single day in my community. Now those four reasons created an identity for me. So for me to move on from games was actually for me to lose all of those things. The way I deal with stress, the way I connect and have meaningful relationships, the way I get to see my progress, the way I get to feel a sense of purpose. So what happened was I looked online. I imagined, I wasn't the only one who struggled with this stuff. If I struggled, there were probably other people too. I looked online, I typed how to quit playing video games into Google, and the answers I found honestly just pissed me off. The answers I got were what I would describe as the typical predictable advice you would get from, say, if I gave a parent, an average parent, an assignment to write an article on how to quit playing video games, that was the article I got. It was things like, you should study more, when the whole reason I was playing video games was to avoid studying. Or to go hang out with your friends when all of my friends played. So the article, I guess, inspired me to write my own article. It was less of an article, more of a rant. I actually swore about 18 times. You won't read that now because I got so many complaints I had to edit it. But in the article I wrote about my experience, my story, how I was a hardcore gamer. I played 16 hours a day. I was a very competitive player. And the lessons I learned. I educated them on how there were reasons they were playing. It wasn't just because games were fun. And the response was actually overwhelming. Today there's over 1,600 comments on the article. They're not just comments like, hey, thanks. They're 1,000-word essays from kids as young as 10, 11, 12 years old, all the way to 50 plus, and everything in between. There's comments where people are sharing their life stories of how they too struggled to quit playing video games for all of the reasons I've mentioned and others. That article turned into a TEDx talk. That video had a really big response. And from that point, I never wanted to leave someone hanging. So if a 12-year-old reached out to me, I would always respond. They deserved it. But for 3 years, that's all I did. And what I realized last year was that for whatever reason, these people relate to me, they resonate with me, they're seeking help. So I'm not going up to people saying, hey, you should quit playing video games. They're coming to me saying, hey, I am failing college, or I just had a newborn and I'm ignoring her because I just want to play games. And they deserve better resources and tools and support to do it. Online right now, outside of the work of many of us in here and what I'm doing, you'll find very little to actually support someone with this stuff. So what I did was, instead of waiting for someone else to do it, I decided to kind of take ownership of that. And we launched Game Quitters, gamequitters.com. We have a YouTube channel with 63 different videos now. We have a forum where we have over 100 new posts every single day of people sharing their stories, journaling about their experience, connecting with other like-minded people, realizing they're not alone, and that although gaming might not be the problem in their life, it's the catalyst, moving on from it's the catalyst for them to learn more about reconnecting with the world and what a meaningful life looks like. And we launched an online recovery program and many other things, and it's really exciting. So where I see this going, and what I think is a big problem, is that there's a lot of stigma, as Eric mentioned. There's a lot of stigma about gaming, and there's a lot of shame involved. And a typical experience a gamer will have is that their parents will tell them that they're wasting their potential, they're lazy, why are you spending all of this time in these games? These friends aren't even meaningful relationships. Now, these gamers experience that as rejection. And guess how they deal with rejection? They play video games. So it's this really vicious cycle. And I see it every single day. And I guess if I could leave just one thing, it's to think about when you tell a kid or an adult, I see everything, but we'll use kid. You tell a kid, let's say a 15-year-old kid, to quit playing video games. You're not just telling him to quit playing video games. What you're telling him is to stop having friends. What you're telling him is that he needs to now be bored all day long. What you're telling him is that he no longer gets an identity in life. He no longer gets a way to feel confident about himself. And on top of that, there's the brain side, which is your brain's attuned to gaming. Gaming's a very hyper-stimulating activity. And everything else in life, in comparison, is very boring. So not only do they get to be bored, lose their friends, lose their identity, no longer feel confident about themselves, but now they also no longer have mental stimulation. And those are the biggest obstacles I see in this community every single day. So what they need and what they've responded really well to is knowing why they do what they do. It's amazing to see when these gamers understand that they're playing for these different reasons and that they can actually find those in other things like martial arts or joining a rock climbing gym or going to sports or extracurricular activities in school or helping them with their social skills, because a lot of them have social anxiety or depression. When you actually help them with this, they respond really, really well. When you don't shame them or stigmatize them as a gamer. And that's a big part of what I'm trying to do. And I think the game development companies have a big role to play in being a positive force to help their members find ways to identify if they're struggling with depression, if they're struggling with anxiety, if they have social skills that they're struggling with, and to help them improve those because their behavior will be a lot healthier because of it. And I think that's a positive role that they can play. So that's kind of what I'm up to and really excited to share some more.